Better to die on one's feet than to live on one's knees. Like all dreamers, I confuse disenchantment with truth. Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. The worst part about being lied to is knowing you weren't worth the truth. Existence is an imperfection. That God does not exist, I cannot deny. That my whole being cries out for God, I cannot forget. Every word has consequences. Every silence too. To know what life is worth, you have to risk it once in a while. Freedom is what we do with what is done to us. When the rich wage war, it's the poor who die. I hate victims who respect their executioners. Man is not the sum of what he is already, but rather the sum of what he does not yet have, of what he could have. Life begins on the other side of despair. The poor don't know that their function in life is to exercise our generosity. Sometimes the truth is too simple for intellectuals. Genius is what a man invents when he is looking for a way out. I will not be modest. Humble as much as you like, but not modest. Modesty is the virtue of the lukewarm. Life has no meaning the moment you lose the illusion of being eternal. Better to have beasts that let themselves be killed than men who run away. Politics is a science. You can demonstrate that you are right and that others are wrong. It is only in our decisions that we are important. Once you hear the details of victory, it is hard to distinguish it from a defeat. Smooth and smiling faces everywhere, but ruin in their eyes. It is therefore senseless to think of complaining, since nothing foreign has decided what we feel, what we live, or what we are. Do you think that I count the days? There is only one day left, always starting over. It is given to us at dawn and taken away from us at dusk. Only the guy who isn't rowing has time to rock the boat. I had found my religion. Nothing seemed more important to me than a book. I saw the library as a temple. I never could bear the idea of anyone expecting something from me. It always made me want to do just the opposite. As far as men go, it is not what they are that interests me, but what they can become. Because we can imagine, we are free. I can always choose, but I ought to know that if I do not choose, I am still choosing. If you're lonely when you're alone, you're in bad company. I felt myself in a solitude so frightful that I contemplated suicide. What held me back was the idea that no one, absolutely no one, would be moved by my death, that I would be even more alone in death than in life. For an occurrence to become an adventure, it is necessary and sufficient for one to recount it. Total war is no longer war waged by all members of one national community against all those of another. It is total because it may well involve the whole world. Every existing thing is born without reason, prolongs itself out of weakness, and dies by chance. I'd come to realize that all our troubles spring from our failure to use plain, clear-cut language. Nothingness lies coiled in the heart of being like a worm. The individual's duty is to do what he wants to do, to think whatever he likes, to be accountable to no one but himself, to challenge every idea and every person. All that I know about my life, it seems I have learned in books. Man is what he wills himself to be. People who live in society have learned how to see themselves in mirrors as they appear to their friends. I have no friends. Is that why my flesh is so naked? Better a good journalist than a poor assassin. I am not virtuous. Our sons will be if we shed enough blood to give them the right to be. Man can will nothing unless he has first understood that he must count on no one but himself. I respect orders, but I respect myself too, and I do not obey foolish rules made especially to humiliate me. I'm going to smile, and my smile will sink down into your pupils, and heaven knows what it will become. There may be more beautiful times, but this one is ours. The more sand that has escaped from the hourglass of our life, the clearer we should see through it. I found the human heart empty and insipid everywhere except in books. What do I care about Jupiter? Justice is a human issue, and I do not need a god to teach it to me. Fear? If I have gained anything by damning myself, it is that I no longer have anything to fear. Once freedom lights its beacon in man's heart, the gods are powerless against him. Everything has been figured out, except how to live. Violence is good for those who have nothing to lose. There are two ways of destroying a people. Either condemn them en bloc or force them to repudiate the leaders they adopted. The second is the worse. I do not believe in God. His existence has been disproved by science. But in the concentration camp, I learned to believe in men. Perhaps it's inevitable. Perhaps one has to choose between being nothing at all and impersonating what one is. I am no longer sure of anything. If I satiate my desires, I sin, but I deliver myself from them. If I refuse to satisfy them, they infect the whole soul. There are two types of poor people: those who are poor together and those who are poor alone. The first are the true poor, the others are rich people out of luck. If I became a philosopher, if I have so keenly sought this fame for which I'm still waiting, it's all been to seduce women basically. I tell you in truth, all men are prophets or else God does not exist. Nothing happens while you live. The scenery changes. People come in and go out. That's all. There are no beginnings. Days are tacked on to days without rhyme or reason. An interminable, monotonous addition. Man is condemned to be free. Condemned because he did not create himself, yet is nevertheless at liberty. And from the moment he is thrown into this world, he is responsible for everything he does. Existence is not something which lets itself be thought of from a distance. It must invade you suddenly, master you, weigh heavily on your heart like a great motionless beast, or else there is nothing at all. We do not judge the people we love. Handing over a banknote is enough to make a bicycle belong to me, but my entire life is needed to realize this possession. When she is alone in the room, I hear her humming to keep herself from thinking. One could only damage oneself through the harm one did to others. One could never get directly at oneself. I am alone in the midst of these happy, reasonable voices. All these creatures spend their time explaining, realizing happily that they agree with each other. In heaven's name, why is it so important to think the same things all together? As for me, I am mean. That means that I need the suffering of others to exist. A flame in their hearts. When I am all alone, I am extinguished. To think new thoughts, you have to break the bones in your head. To eat is to appropriate by destruction. Anything would be better than this agony of mind. This creeping pain that gnaws and fumbles and caresses one and never hurts quite enough. One cannot become a saint when one works 16 hours a day. I think of death only with tranquility, as an end. I refuse to let death hamper life. Death must enter life only to define it. In love, 1 and 1 are 1. 3 o'clock is always too late or too early for anything you want to do. There is only one day left, always starting over. It is given to us at dawn and taken away from us at dusk. I am going to outlive myself. Eat, sleep, sleep, eat. Exist slowly, softly, like these trees, like a puddle of water, like the red bench in the streetcar. She believed in nothing. Only her skepticism kept her from being an atheist. Man is nothing else but what he purposes. He exists only in so far as he realizes himself. He is therefore nothing else but the sum of his actions. Nothing else but what his life is. Your judgment judges you and defines you. My thought is me. That is why I cannot stop thinking. I exist because I think I cannot keep from thinking. Generosity is nothing else than a craze to possess. All which I abandon, all which I give, I enjoy in a higher manner through the fact that I give it away. To give is to enjoy possessively the object which one gives. Imagination is not an empirical or superadded power of consciousness. It is the whole of consciousness as it realizes its freedom. I wanted my own words. But the ones I use have been dragged through I don't know how many consciences. We are our choices. So this is hell. I'd never have believed it. You remember all we were told about the torture chambers, the fire and brimstone, the burning marl, old wives' tales. There's no need for red-hot pokers. Hell is other people. It answers the question that was tormenting you. My love, you are not one thing in my life. Not even the most important. Because my life no longer belongs to me. Because you are always me. The existentialist says at once that man is anguish. One is still what one is going to cease to be and already what one is going to become. One lives one's death. One dies one's life. Acting is happy agony. It's quite an undertaking to start loving somebody. You have to have energy, generosity, blindness. There is even a moment right at the start where you have to jump across an abyss. If you think about it, you don't do it. Words are loaded pistols. We only become what we are by the radical and deep-seated refusal of that which others have made of us. Man can will nothing unless he has first understood that he must count on no one but himself. That he is alone, abandoned on earth in the midst of his infinite responsibilities. Without help, with no other aim than the one he sets himself, with no other destiny than the one he forges for himself on this earth. You must be like me. You must suffer in rhythm. Every age has its own poetry. In every age the circumstances of history choose a nation, a race, a class to take up the torch by creating situations that can be expressed or transcended only through poetry. I exist. That is all. And I find it nauseating. There is a universe behind and before him. And the day is approaching when, closing the last book on the last shelf on the far left, he will say to himself, "Now what?" This is what I thought. For the most banal even to become an adventure, you must begin to recount it. This is what fools people. A man is always a teller of tales. He sees everything that happens to him through them, and he tries to live his own life as if he were telling a story. But you have to choose. Live or tell. I want to leave. To go somewhere where I should be really in my place. Where I would fit in. But my place is nowhere. I am unwanted. You and me are real people, operating in a real world. We are not figments of each other's imagination. I am the architect of my own self, my own character and destiny. It is no use whining about what I might have been. I am the things I have done and nothing more. We are all free, completely free. We can each do any damn thing we want. Which is more than most of us dare to imagine. Fascism is not defined by the number of its victims, but by the way it kills them. Acting is a question of absorbing other people's personalities and adding some of your own experience. To forget. How childish. I feel you in my bones. Your silence screams in my ears. You may nail your mouth shut. You may cut out your tongue. Can you keep yourself from existing? Will you stop your thoughts? You must be afraid, my son. That is how one becomes an honest citizen. I suppose it is out of laziness that the world is the same day after day. Today it seemed to want to change. And then anything could happen. One always dies too soon. Or too late. And yet one's whole life is complete at that moment, with a line drawn neatly under it, ready for the summing up. You are your life, and nothing else. I say a murder is abstract. You pull the trigger and after that you do not understand anything that happens. Who can exhaust a man? Who knows a man's resources? Evil is the product of the ability of humans to make abstract that which is concrete. Once we know and are aware, we are responsible for our action and our inaction. We can do something about it or ignore it. Either way, we are still responsible. Through the lack of attaching myself to words, my thoughts remain nebulous most of the time. They sketch vague, pleasant shapes and then are swallowed up. I forget them almost immediately. Being is. Being is in itself. Being is what it is. All human actions are equivalent and all are on principle doomed to failure. Life has no meaning a priori. It is up to you to give it a meaning, and value is nothing but the meaning that you choose. Everything has been figured out, except how to live. I am, I exist, I think, therefore I am. I am because I think. Why do I think? I don't want to think anymore. I am because I think that I don't want to be. I think that because, my thought is me, that's why I can't stop. I exist because I think. And I can't stop myself from thinking. At this very moment, it's frightful. If I exist, it is because I am horrified at existing. I am the one who pulls myself from the nothingness to which I aspire. You are your life, and nothing else. The aim of language is to communicate, to impart to others the results one has obtained. As I talk, I reveal the situation, I reveal it to myself and to others in order to change it. We do not know what we want and yet we are responsible for what we are, that is the fact. In life man commits himself and draws his own portrait, outside of which there is nothing. No doubt this thought may seem harsh to someone who has not made a success of his life. But on the other hand, it helps people to understand that reality alone counts, and that dreams, expectations and hopes only serve to define a man as a broken dream, aborted hopes, and futile expectations. He was free in every way, free to behave like a fool or a machine, free to accept, free to refuse, free to equivocate, to marry, to give up the game, to drag this death weight about with him for years to come. He could do what he liked, no one had the right to advise him, there would be for him no good or evil unless he thought them into being. I had spent my time counterfeiting eternity. Death is a continuation of my life without me. No finite point has meaning without an infinite reference point. I have crossed the seas, I have left cities behind me. And I have followed the source of rivers towards their source or plunged into forests, always making for other cities. I have had women, I have fought with men, and I could never turn back any more than a record can spin in reverse. And all that was leading me where? To this very moment. Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies. They know that their remarks are frivolous, open to challenge. But they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse for, by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent, loftily indicating by some phrase that the time for argument is past. Everything has been figured out, except how to live. Existence is prior to essence. Life is a useless passion. I confused things with their names, that is belief. He is always becoming, and if it were not for the contingency of death, he would never end. I had spent my time counterfeiting eternity.